we go to the one and only Kimberly Dvorak. She is the award-winning National Security Board of Security Investigative reporter for TV, radio, and the print media. And Kimberly just happens to be the senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. She's also a TV correspondent, CW6 News, San Diego, as well as One America News Network, and she's streaming live, Periscope.com, Facebook, and then she'll have reports later on YouTube. And Kimberly, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Well, let me tell you, definitely a very busy, disastrous weekend.
Yeah.
Sri Lanka, unbelievable. I want to get into social media a little bit later on because that's one of the first steps they did. They shut them all down, but we don't want any false reports. I guess it's kind of similar to CNN over there. I wanted to ask you, though, about the IED crisis.
Yeah.
And,
well,
if you were briefing President Trump, any comments on that?
Yeah, I'd say that, as, we get further and further from 9/11, and we're seeing attacks all over the world. In this case, we saw Christians attacked and killed in large numbers. And when you look at these attacks, especially what happened in Sri Lanka over the weekend, it really kind of, the act was carried out in a similar fashion to what happened in Mumbai, India, several years ago, where they're targeting not only Western, Western organizations where they're going for the high value and people who have the money to spend at high-end hotels and such, and people seem to let their guard down when they're in that kind of environment. One of the ways that these, attackers can perpetuate such great damage is by using forms of IEDs, which we see on the battlefields in the Middle East. However, there have been several bomb makers that have come out of the Middle East and are advising other terror organizations. And while the reporting on this is still very early, they're looking at significant ties to ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and that this event was most likely planned in Pakistan. So now you have to look at, these other countries tailor-making their weapons of war and just unleashing them on the Christians around the world.
Yeah, and let me see here, they're saying 13 suspects in connection with the bombing arrested. And it says these attacks could be quite different and look as if they came, as you said, right out of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and the global militant jihadist playbook. 7 suicide bombers that carried out these attacks.
And they found several bombs that did not go off and that were unsuccessful. We saw that in London when they went out after concert goers, young people at Ariana Grande concert, where some of the bombs that they made did not detonate. Kudos to law enforcement there to finding those and ensuring that those did not take any lives. But make no mistake, this was about targeting the Christian faith and trying to put some sort of fear into the Christian religion, especially around the holiest day of the year for Christians, and that's, of course, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and I guess the big question, we got about a minute before we have to get into a break, is do you think America is vulnerable to these IED attacks like the ones that we saw in Sri Lanka and other places?
Yeah, I mean, we've actually seen them. Law enforcement has disrupted plans, and you look at the United States and their law enforcement agencies, whether they're state, local, or federal, they have to be right 100% of the time. The bad guy has to be right once. With this massive migration crossing our southern borders and no real way to determine who exactly is coming into our country, this is another way for people to cross an unsecure border and unleash whatever knowledge they had gained overseas with these various different terrorist groups. It's going to happen in this country at some point. Most experts point to that. We've been very lucky so far, but this will cross our border.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, as we go into this break, they are saying that there was a delay in action as to why the warnings that they had were ignored. Yeah. And one father, he said he heard of a possible attack, and you've been warned not to enter any popular churches.
Yeah.
Got to pay attention. All right, the one and only Kimberly Dvorak, streaming on Facebook.com as we speak, and she is the foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy, and it's thekbreport.com. D-O-R-A-K. Smith was taken, I guess. D-V-O-R-A-K. Yeah. And what we're discussing, of course, not a laughing matter.
Yeah.
And these IED attacks, there has to be, and I guess the obvious question is, what's holding us back, Kimberly, on really winning the war on this? I mean, you can't use dogs, okay?
Yeah.
To walk all over the place and sniff them out.
Yeah.
And you can't detect them, I don't think, when they're underground unless you're right over the top of them, like searching for a minefield.
Yeah, well, this is what makes them so successful. We saw this with the Boston bombers, where they walked in backpacks and dropped off backpacks and then remotely detonated with a cell phone. The ingredients used to make these bombs, I mean, a lot of them are chemicals that you probably would find in your home. You could use bleach. You can use a number of different, cleaning products that when you put them in the right formation and the right amounts are going to create an explosion. And it's not something that you have to be a chemical scientist, unfortunately, because the internet. So you're seeing a lot of these, kitchen sink bombs, as they call them or refer to them, that, it's quite easy to get the information on how to even put one together just by going to the internet. So this, may be an area for, Congress to look into, what is, where that First Amendment goes to as far as what Americans, at least in this country, are, able to obtain on the internet. This may be something that they just think is something that we, could be connected to national security and could remove these types of posts from the internet. That could be one way. There's no sure way to gauge exactly what the right answer is on this, but what is the right answer is for every American and everyone around the world to be very cognizant, very vigilant of what you're seeing around you. If you're seeing people act nervous, this is going to be something that, hey, you might want to just, locate your exit door so you know how to get out. First of all, notify somebody you believe is in charge to look into the situation. And I think what you're seeing, especially with them going after the Catholic churches in the Western hotels here in Sri Lanka, I think is that, the terrorists, their greatest weapon they have is fear. And they seek to impose a lot of fear within people who are, religious people who are very just, I'm going to get up, go to work today, go to church on the weekends, raise my family. And if you strike fear in the average person, then it becomes more and more easy for people to say, well, we need to be a secular society. And the United States was never based on a government. Our Constitution was never based on being a secular country. We're based on a Christian country with Christian values, and we sought to protect that. But you're seeing a lot of different people, get rid of religion out of the public sphere, and by taking that away from everyday people, I don't want to, kind of preach here, but you take away your hope. I mean, for most of us that are religious, we believe in the hope that, there's a better place than here. But if you zap a society from this religious persecution and you try to get it out of their everyday life, then it makes it easier for other people to come in and fill that void. And in this case, godlessness is trying in this country to fill a void, I believe. And it's also something that people need to be concerned about, where we're allowing in this country some forms of the Islam religion to come in and take over and actually, become some sort of precedent over U.S. law. This is where we need to be concerned about this. And this is why our southern border, as we talk about week in and week out, why this southern border is so incredibly important for us to know who's coming to our country so we can protect ourselves, our citizens, from any kind of attacks like what happened over the weekend in Sri Lanka.
Well, some of the fear, I would assume, is coming from the thing about, you got to be politically correct. Islamophobia Islamophobia. You can't start, shouting fire in the theater, so to speak. And they've really built that up, so some people don't want to say anything, even if they, suspect something. You know what I'm saying? Because, oh, no, I'm not that way. Yeah, everybody's created equal. All right? So what was that loud noise?
Yeah. Well, again, I think they use this as a political tool, and our enemies are able to exploit our kindnesses in this country. It's very easy for them to exploit that, because right now in this country, we're going through a wave where, the Christians in this country, it's a religion that's in decline. You're seeing younger and younger people not necessarily really believe in a God. And, for, good, bad, and different, this country, the fabric of our country is knitted together carefully with a lot of different religions, whether you're a Baptist or a Catholic or a Jewish, person or whatever. We're knitted together in a community that has a sense of right and wrong. You start taking away the one major factor that, is establishing that right or wrong parameter, and it just makes it easier and opens it, ourselves up to more attacks like this, and makes it harder on our law enforcement people to do the job that they're doing. And it's a really, really tough one, especially with what's going on down at the southern border.
Well, and I'm going to get back to Islamophobia again, and with Omar, the Congress lady, representative, when she's doing, it was somebody that did something, and downplaying 9/11, and then over the weekend they go back to an old Twitter she made whenever she wasn't yet elected, but she was a candidate for something. Mm-hmm. Anyway, playing down, the Black Hawk Down situation, and how bad the Americans were. They don't want you to say or shout anything about watch out for a Trojan horse. That's my belief. But see, they haven't got me to that point yet, so I'm still, thinking about it. And when we were speaking about IEDs a moment ago, there's another thing they're putting the fear in now, people, and it's been building up for a long time. You always heard about the black helicopters. All right, they've now been replaced by the black or the white or the silver or the red drones, right?
Yep.
So now, I don't know what the possibility would be. I know indoors, finding an IED, you can't, have a drone in there searching. But see, I'm thinking about the military. Mm-hmm. Have they come to the point yet where whenever they've got the convoy going, that a drone could switch back and forth to pick up some magnetic thing in the ground? Or would that be, for some reason, you just can't do it. It's against our religion.
Well,
has it gone that far?
Well, you know what? I think that, there is technology out there that can definitely find these. Most people don't, not most people, a lot of people don't realize that, there are a number of tunnels that go underneath our border that go undetected, and they don't make the front page of the newspaper. But the men and women in uniform that go out and are looking for, certain patterns in sound waves that, are not noticeable to the naked ear, they're finding these tunnels. So, again, this can actually go towards, using this as another reason why we want to, have a border security initiative put in place so we can detect any kind of activity that may be, trying to get to this country. There's so many different dangers that a sovereign country face. And if you're not protecting your borders, then you're not necessarily a sovereign country any longer. And our enemies are focusing in on this, and they're seeing how easy it is to come to this country. And, law enforcement and intel sources and things that, I talk to, they're here. There's a lot of people here. The one thing that they don't count on, it's kind of, during World War II, why the Japanese never came to the U.S., because they didn't know who would have a weapon or firearm when they knocked on that door to take over that housing district, so to speak. We still have that right. And so that's a huge deterrent. And Americans will pull together in the end. I think you look at 9/11, and Americans of all stripes, political persuasions, they all pulled together. And they all came together for a united cause, and that cause being the United States of America. So I just think that when we're looking at these instances, we have to definitely take note of this. Could we have prevented it? I'm not certain that the U.S. could have prevented it, but it certainly sounds like they had information that was percolating about in Sri Lanka. They had advance warning something was going to happen. And in light of what happened at Notre Dame, it may have been an extra red flag that they had, and they decided not to follow through with. That's going to be something they have to deal with in their country. But, in this country, we're in the business of preventing something from happening. And if we're going to prevent this type of incident in this country from taking forward, whether you're attacking a mosque or whether you're attacking a synagogue or a church, this is just something that you have to be cognizant about. And it's a really sad thing that in this country, we have to start thinking in terms of protection of our religious communities, just purely because these people are, pretty honest people that are just trying to get through life. And now this is something else they have to deal with.
I think it was, I don't think I know it was last week, but I think it was New York City where they arrested the guy that was carrying the gasoline and the torches and all that stuff. Turns out this is the second time. And as soon as the story came across, I automatically said, he wants to be a copycat, like the Notre Dame zero.
Yeah.
And then you have to the border, okay, an interesting thing here, and I'm actually going to have a guest on talking about it later this week. But here you had where these Mexican troops detained the U.S. Border Patrol, and the Mexican troops had guns, and the Mexican troops were in America, all right? And so, hoo-ha-ha, somebody just, didn't realize where they were, and that's no problem there. So then you got Saturday, the FBI goes in and arrests an American because they're armed and they were detaining the migrants that had snuck across the border. And I'm thinking, boy, it doesn't take the FBI long to arrest an American that's holding a gun, but they sure don't get involved, when it's somebody from another country, the Mexican troops.
Yeah, well.
Here's the thing, and my guest brought this up real quick. The guy that got arrested, Larry Hopkins, he's already been arrested before because he's not allowed to carry a gun.
Yeah.
No gasoline for you on that.
Yeah. Well, I think, I don't know the person they actually arrested personally, but, living in California and spending a lot of time in Southern Arizona, there are a number of militia organizations that actually, a lot of them are former law enforcement agents that are retired, and they see what's going on at the border, and their inclination is to say, we're going to go down, we're going to help out Border Patrol. And when you watch Border Patrol and you see some of the press releases that they released over the weekend regarding this personal or this actual incident here, they're saying that, we are unable to slow the people crossing the border. We can't stop them. The numbers are overwhelming to us. And they were complimentary to a lot of these organizations that are helping them to detain people, because they don't know if this is someone who is trying to escape from Central America, that quite possibly maybe they were convicted of murder somewhere. Oh, wait a minute, that happened in this country, and they found the person trying to cross the border again. So this is happening in Border Patrol. I mean, this, I know this, but most people don't realize when Border Patrol's in their vehicles and they're patrolling the border, they are usually one person to a car or a truck. It's not multiple people, so they're out there on their own. So any extra help that they're getting from some of these militias, is welcome news to them, because they're completely overwhelmed. And if something happens, like a terrorist gets through, like a cartel member gets through and perpetrates a god-awful crime, these law enforcement agents feel that, oh my gosh, I let the country down. I let the community down because I didn't get this guy. Well, this just puts another layer of safety here and try to help the law enforcement that are on the job working overtime trying to protect this country. And a lot of these, like I said, the majority of the people that are in these organizations are retired law enforcement officers who have substantial training on how to handle firearms, what the law is, what the law isn't. And to my knowledge, we haven't seen any of these militias maybe you can correct me, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on this, that have gone out over and above and actually killed migrants trying to cross into this country illegally. So, when you look at the context of this, one person, got caught up because they had some sort of, arrest in their past where they couldn't own a firearm. Okay, good. The FBI got them, great. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. But Border Patrol's not upset about that.
The worst thing on that is, he's given a bad press.
Yeah.
He was actually doing what he felt was, being an American.
Yeah.
And he also had an alien, which kind of cracks me up because his real name, as I understand, is Johnny Fortin.
Yeah.
I remember the song North of Alaska?
Yeah.
I don't think he's Johnny Fortin because he's actually 69 years of age.
Yeah.
But there was one outstanding group, and it was formed by a guy who was listening to the George Putnam show, the creator of this show, and his name was Jim Gilchrist, and they were called the Minutemen.
Yep.
And they never went out and shot anybody, but boy, the left came down on them.
And the ACLU.
You're gonna, the ACLU, it's just unbelievable. We're coming up on our final break here, and let me see here. I'll leave it up to you what you want to talk about when we come back. But of course, the border ain't going to go away. It would kind of be nice if they'd add a decoration down there, called the wall or something maybe, but we'll see. All right, Kimberly Dvorak, and it is KDReport.com. You spell the last name Dvoraka, and you can go to her Facebook page and get all of these excellent, outstanding, unbelievable reports that she and I do once a week. All right, and it's Facebook.com. Kimberly Dvorak. I wanted to get your opinion real quick on the Sri Lanka thing. Today, they lifted the curfew. They say that they had imposed on social media. They blocked everything on social media, and they said it was to curtail the spread of false information and ease the tension in the country of more than 22 million.
Yeah.
I guess you and I would probably both agree that we would never want it to come to that where they would cut it off in America.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know that Dianne Feinstein in the past, Senator Feinstein, has worked on a bill aptly named, killing the internet switch. They want a kill switch. They want to be able to, shut the internet down, allegedly, I guess, for something of this type of nature to happen. Unfortunately for Sri Lanka, they don't have the laws that we have and the protections we have in this country, and lawmakers have not actually obtained any kind of legislation that could quite possibly do something like this. But we do know that, Apple and Facebook and all the other social media outlets, they curtail their actual, websites in that to suit, say, what's going on in China. And China has restrictions on what you can and can't say, what you can and can't criticize. And these social media platforms are okay with that, and they tailor make their programs to suit these foreign governments. I think that when we see these types of situations, a lot of people actually turn to social media to find out where the nearest hospitals are, where a safe zone may be. They look at this for, first aid. They're looking at this, that at social media. We use social media on a daily basis for a lot more than posting pictures. So, so I think personally think that's a pretty dire situation where they, shut that down because they say they don't want to, put any propaganda out there. I think the terrorists that actually committed this act actually did a great job of that on their own. We know this, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that would go like Feinstein's bill? I mean, it's pretty serious because you could go from killing the switch on, kill switch on Facebook and social media, and then next you would have the kill switch for TV, radio. Yeah.
Which, they would like to see, I believe, at some point. But in this country, if there was to be any kind of civil war or whatnot, I mean, you would think the government, is going to, they'll try to manipulate the viewpoint of their side. I mean, we're seeing this with the Mueller report. We're seeing Democrats, flip over backwards, twist and play twister here to try to make the president look guilty on all of these counts, which they clearly cleared him on. So, I mean, it's used by political parties to exert a political will. And if you look at the basis and the foundation of our country, especially we have the First Amendment, you can't curtail that. You know what, you may not like, what they're having to say about this, but they certainly have the right to say it. And, we in the journalism field here, which is, sadly disappearing on a daily basis, I think, with accurate reporting. And, we really ought to protect that, and we ought to stand up for that. And we ought to be out there reporting the facts on stories and informing people. So, yeah, I don't think it would fly.
Right now, there are a few conservatives, Kimberly, as we get into our final break here, saying that there's a few Democrats that need some psychological therapy there.
I think they're working on that.
Hey, thank you very much. Look forward to our next visit next week there, and appreciate it very much.
All righty. Thank you.